everybody. Welcome back to Homeschool Minnesota. My name is Dayle Annand. It's so good to have you guys with us today. Homeschool Minnesota is a podcast outreach of Minnesota Association of Christian Home Educators, MACHE. We're so glad that you're here. Please let us know if there's anything that we can do to help you out in your homeschooling journey. If you have any questions, we would love to be there to answer any of those questions that you have. You can find a contact information in the link of this podcast. Hey, I'm excited to have Jean Burk with us. Jean Burk has a college prep course, or college prep business, I guess, online called College Prep Genius. Hi, Jean. How are you?
Hey, Dayle. Good to see you.
I'm so glad that you're here. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, well, I am actually coming from Texas, so you might hear some y'alls mixed in there, so just got to bear with me on that. We are also around 100 plus degrees today, but that's normal for us here. And so I'm married, and I have two children that are both adults. My son is an attorney in the Los Angeles, Santa Monica area, and my daughter is an FBI special agent in New York. So I have law and order on both coasts.
Wow. You can't get away with anything.
No, not at all. Not at all. And my kids were homeschooled all the way through. And of course, I went on to law school and grad school. I'm a speaker at many of the homeschool conferences, and I love doing that. And hopefully I get to come to Minnesota next year and do that. So
yeah,
I'm
we
excited.
hope to see you. Jean has a website, College Prep Genius, and this website has a lot of information about college prep and testing. So, Jean, can you tell us a little bit about what your company has to offer to those who are preparing to take their college exams?
So, yes, what we do, we currently have how to basically master the SAT, PSAT, and also the CLT as well. The ACT, our older program worked on the ACT, but they are actually changing this year to a brand new formatting, which will be finalized in September, and then we'll analyze it and create a new program. And SAT changed last year. So right now we currently have virtual classes, self-paced courses, and then people also will host our class in their city or their state, and we'll go and do a live class. We also have programs and courses and webinars on college prep, scholarship money, debt-free degrees, and so kind of everything you want to know when it comes to how to get into college and how to get it paid for.
Wow, that's helpful. I know that for families, college can be for homeschool families, very daunting because you don't have a guidance counselor walking you through all of that and looking for scholarship money or any of that. So parents have to be informed. And so this is a really good way for parents to get very informed on how to walk their children through the college maze, so to speak.
Right.
So, go ahead. Did you have something you wanted to say? I'm
No,
sorry.
well, when you just brought the guidance counselor,
Yeah.
I used to think many, many years ago that we were the least informed because we didn't have a counselor, but actually be thankful you don't, because most counselors in most schools, number one, they're overwhelmed. They have a lot on their plate, and their job is not to get your child into college, it's to get them out of high school.
Yes.
And so their wheelhouse is not college prep. And what I have found in many, many years, even having friends and family members as counselors, is they give the wrong information to the kids, and it costs them scholarship money because of, wait till the end of your junior year to start thinking about SATs. And at that point, number one, you're already so overwhelmed with school, homework, job, sports, friends, clubs. You've got a lot going on, but only that, you're starting to fill out your applications and put together your resume and all of that. And so if they were telling the students correctly, if they knew this, if they were educated, then they would certainly tell them to start a lot sooner than that. So as a homeschooler, we actually end up being more informed because we don't have a choice. We have to figure things out on our own.
And as homeschoolers, we're used to that.
That's right.
We're used to figuring things out on our own. So why is a good performance on a college entrance test important to students and parents?
Well, because colleges get their national rankings based on test scores. So the higher the test score coming into their school, the higher their rankings will go. And the higher their rankings go, they can get more funding. They can attract students who can pay full sticker price. They can attract very talented athletes who just need the minimum to get in, which of course is going to drop their average down. So they're going to need more students with higher scores. So since colleges are a business, they're looking for what student is going to make them look good. And if you can come in and make them look good and help them and raise their rankings, they're willing to pay your way. It's a win-win situation for families who can do that and not be stuck. The average student spends 20 years paying off college debt. That is 2 decades of your life paying for something that you did in 4 years. And there's no college worth that. That's a lousy investment.
Yeah, it really, really is. And if you can head some of that off by getting good test scores, it's only going to help in the long run. Because a lot of parents can't afford to invest a lot of money into their child's college education. It's just gotten out of hand and very, very expensive. And so if you can get good test scores, you can get better scholarships, you get recruited from better colleges, and that only helps your student.
Definitely.
So you had mentioned the ACT, SAT. Does your method work for all college entrance exams, or are there some that it's just not compatible with?
So prior to 2024, SAT, ACT, and the CLT were all about 99% the same test because it was a crossover information. Well, what happened was, we all know what happened in 2020, as we all call it down here in Texas, the house arrest. And so
try living in Minnesota in 2020.
Oh my goodness, I cannot imagine living there during that time frame. But what happened was the colleges shut down. SATs and ACTs, you couldn't take them because we couldn't go anywhere. And what happened was they couldn't roll out a test fast enough, and so they lost a ton of money. Except the CLT, which was already remotely proctored, and you could take the CLT. Every college would accept it if they knew about it. And it's the new alternative to the SAT and ACT. So they said we need to come out with a digital version. So they finally rolled out a digital version SAT in 2024, which was a shorter test. It went from 3 hours to 2 hours and 14 minutes. The CLT was already 2 hours. And then, not to be outdone, the ACT said, well, wait a minute, we don't want to be left out. So now they're changing. They're going through the changes right now. And ultimately, we'll have their final test in September. And it's going to be 2 hours and 5 minutes. Still more than CLT. And so now they're more different than they are alike. That used to be the opposite. So, but I'll tell you what is good news, though, is that test taking is a different skill set. And most students don't understand that you're going to be tested all your life. It's not just about getting into college and getting scholarship money. That's great. But if you're going to go onto grad school, law school, med school, maybe you go into the trades, or maybe you go into the military, you're still going to be tested. And so the skill set of test taking, knowing that there's one objective answer and several distractors, will help you. And so we've had people who've used our program and have a really long list of tests, but not just your SATs and ACTs and CLTs, but like on the ASVAB or the GRE, the real estate test, the CPA test, civil service test. I mean, I could go on and on of the test because they kind of all do the same thing. And I feel as a homeschooler, we almost do our kids a disservice if we don't add test prep as another class, because of the fact that no matter where they go after 12th grade, they're going to be tested. Even nurses and doctors get tested every 6 months for certifications, and it's about their critical thinking skills, not about their degree. And that SATs and ACTs are just logic tests.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's important. And as a homeschooler, you can use test prep as an elective on your transcript.
Okay, well, that's good. That's good to know. I think you're right when you say that it's more about logic than it is. At one point on your website, you talk about how it's almost like a waste of time, I guess, studying math, reading, and writing. And I'm assuming it's because of the way that the tests are made up. Is that
absolutely.
correct?
Oh, 100%. So they can't test you on content. First of all, every state, every high school teaches a different math curriculum or a different science or grammar rules. What we learn in Texas is not what you learn in Minnesota.
Right.
Every homeschooler has a different curriculum for their kids. So it cannot be about content. So what happens is it's got to be about the one thing they all have in common, which is critical thinking. Because colleges know that a 4.0 at one high school is not the same at another. Every school weighs and calculates their scores differently. So the only fair way to compare all students, homeschool, public school, private school, doesn't matter, is a test like an SAT or ACT or CLT, because it levels the playing field. Okay. And here's the thing. Let's say your child takes really hard, rigorous courses and has a certain GPA, but then your next door neighbor, he goes to an easy school, has an easy teacher, and he has the same GPA as your child. Now on paper, they look the same. That's so you have to have some kind of numerical component that's common to all applicants. And that's why they use a standardized test, because it has standardized questions and standardized answers. And the reason why you see these students bombing them, smart kids, valedictorians, top 10% of schools, is because the questions are written to purposely mislead the student, and the wrong answers can be very appealing. So if you're looking at a question and approaching it like a normal test, you're probably going to fall for the trick answer, because they're not testing how smart you are in math. They're testing your critical thinking skills on a math problem. And so that's why it doesn't matter your curriculum. I mean, we have 7th graders who score higher than seniors on their SATs.
Wow.
And they haven't even been to high school yet. So once you learn about the logic and the recurring patterns, you don't study for the test, you study the test itself.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really good. But so what do you say then to parents who use a more traditional approach to college prep, like websites or books and prep tests, like sample prep tests to get ready for the SAT and ACT?
Come to me when it doesn't work. Yeah, no. So here's the thing. A lot of companies, and I'll give you kind of an overview of many companies, even a lot of the big name brand companies where people pay thousands and thousands of dollars for,
Mm-hmm.
they often will teach your student more math concepts, thousands of vocabulary words, and lots of grammar rules. And they're just reteaching school all over again. And that's just wasting time and money. Because as I said, how can you give a child 5,000 vocabulary words to study when in the dictionary there's 171,000 words and nobody knows which ones will be on the test except the test makers?
Yeah.
So that's just wasting your time. And plus, not only does it waste time and money, and sometimes a lot of money, it just frustrates the students because they are putting all this work in, all this time in, and then they go take the test and it doesn't really change. The score doesn't really change because they did all the wrong things. It's kind of like writing an essay by using math equations. It doesn't make sense. And so you have to study. It's like I tell people, if you take a history test, you study history. If you take a geography test, you study geography. If you're going to take a logic test, then what do you study? You study the logical patterns.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I just wonder, like, so if a parent comes to you and they want to sign their child up, what kinds of things do they get when they come to your website?
So if they come to my website and if they want to buy the self-paced course, that's the one where they're on-demand videos. Students can do it at their own time, which is nice if you got a busy schedule. They get 1 year access to the videos. It has homework. It has a journal for success. It's got practice tests. It's got quizzes. And it's got a guideline of homework. And here's what you're supposed to be doing every day to reinforce what you just learned in the videos. And they get a full access to that. And they get a workbook as well. And that can be used for all their family members. So we don't, we're not out to gouge anybody. So if you get the self-paced, if you got like a 10th grader and an 8th grader, even a 6th or 7th grader, hey, let them take the class too, because the sooner you start, the more time you have to improve, and you can't get time back. If you do one of our virtual classes, some students prefer an in-person teacher in front of their face. I want to interact. I want to ask questions. I want to get that instant feedback. We have virtual classes. And so for those, you get the recorded classes for 6 months. You get your workbook and you get all that other stuff as well. And then if somebody says, you know what, hey, what about a live in-person class? I'd love that. My kids would do better if sitting in a classroom type setting with a bunch of other kids. So we have the ability where families can actually host our class, where let's say someone there in Minnesota says, hey, wow, we'd love to bring you or one of your teachers up here. If you get together a minimum of 10 students, paid students, as a host, your kids are free. Plus, you get a lot of other fun extra perks too. And really, the only requirement for hosting a class is getting a minimum of 10 kids and a place to teach, which could be a church, school, library, community center. So it doesn't matter. And then, we do all the rest and we give you all the tools to do it. We've done this for 20 years. We've taught in probably most states, and I've also taught in 5 other countries as well.
Wow.
So that's, if somebody's interested in that, they can just contact us. And there's a page on our website that says, host a class. You just click on it and you can just put your name and email in and we'll contact you.
Yeah, and that's the boot camp, correct?
Well, the boot camp is, you can host it there. If you click on it under courses, it says host a class.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's a 2-day real intense class. So
Okay.
it's a lot of fun.
Okay. And tell us about the boot camp, because I saw that on your website and I was wondering about that.
So I just returned from San Antonio. I just taught a class there. Where a school called me, Castle Hill in San Antonio, called me and they said, hey, one of my good friends told me about you. Her kids did your class. They did amazing. And we'd love you to come to our school. And so I think in that class we had about 16 kids, but I've had hundreds at a time. The kids paid, and we give them a link to how to pay. And I went down there and I taught a 2-day class. And we just make it a lot of fun. Kids get to interact. We use actual workbook questions. We have highlighters. Because on the actual test, the digital SAT, they give you a highlighting tool that you can highlight certain things. So we show you how to answer every question in 30 seconds or less. And we use an actual highlighter to mimic the test. And we also have, there's also mark out tools and mark for review tools. And so we mimic that in the classroom. And that way they can transfer that information on when they go take the actual digital test. And so we had a great time. Kids were wonderful. And I've taught in schools. I've taught in libraries. I've taught all over the U.S. as well as other countries. And the kids are great. They walk away really excited. And what it does, Now they're only going to remember about 10% of what they heard the first time. So they have to really solidify it, and to apply it appropriately, they have to hear it again and again. So as a bonus, I give all my in-person students of those classes my self-paced course, just as a bonus, to go back over it and hear it again and again.
Wow.
And that's great. And they just, what it does, the in-person classes jumpstart the motivation and gives the kids confidence that they, especially if they've taken a test before they didn't do so well, they're walking away going, well, no wonder I didn't do so well. I did everything wrong. But you see the light bulbs coming on when they start answering questions in 10, 20, 30 seconds. Whereas before they would have spent probably 2 or 3 minutes on that problem.
Yeah.
It gets them really excited.
Yeah, that's really cool. I think this, for those of you who are listening, this would be a great co-op class. This would be a really great homeschool co-op class for those who are college bound and want to take the exam. If you're like me, I just had my kids take it whether they thought they were going to college or not, simply because it just gets them ready. I mean, they just know if they decide, a few years down the road that they're going to go, they've already jumped through all the hoops that they need to jump through. And so it was just preparing them for that. But when should students start preparing for their college exams?
So to be completely honest, as early as possible. We have 6th graders and above who do our program. Now, not every 6th grader is ready.
Yeah.
Okay. But when you start in middle school, you can do it at a slower pace. You can maybe spend 2 or 3 weeks on one lesson. For example, if you have a self-paced course, you're not under pressure. But as kids get older, they get so busy. Even our homeschoolers, they take on maybe a part-time job. Maybe they play some outside sports. You've got driver's ed. You've got maybe a co-op class.
Yeah.
You've got church and clubs and friends, and you're
activities.
Overwhelmed. You're so busy. You're so maxed out. And so you have less time to improve, which is going to obviously decrease the opportunities that you're going to have because of the lack of time. And so I'm a big believer in starting early. And another thing about starting in middle school, if possible, anytime you do a high school class in middle school, it's considered an honors class. So you can weigh that on a 4.5 instead of a 4.0. And, again, you can make it an elective, which is nice.
Yeah.
So, and then once you here's the other thing about starting early. Let's say you start in 7th, 8th grade. Let's say you get the score you want by 9th or 10th grade. Then you're done. You're done. Yeah. You don't have to take it again. The pressure is off you. And kind of, as you were saying, they archive your scores indefinitely. Yeah. So even if you're maybe thinking, I'm not going to go to college after high school, or I don't want to go to college, but you take it anyways. Let's say you get out of school a few years, you're going to forget basic geometry and basic algebra. But because they keep your scores, then you don't have to worry about that. You've got your score waiting for you.
Yeah, that's so good. That's so good. Any last minute pieces of advice for any families that are listening that are on that trajectory of thinking about, my 7th, 8th grader, I need to start thinking about college already. But you do. It's a competitive thing. Yeah.
Absolutely. So college, obviously, it's not for everybody.
Right.
But sometimes as a homeschooling parent, you kind of want to prepare your kids as if they are going to go, because you don't want them to get to that senior year. For all through high school, they've been telling you, I'm not going to go to college. I'm not going to go to college. Okay, great. They get to become a senior and they're like, oh yeah, Mom, I've decided to become an engineer. And you're like, oh my goodness, we got to get another math and science somewhere. So prepare your students as if they are, because then you don't limit their opportunities.
Right.
Because as I said earlier, the average student spends 20 years paying off college debt. That cripples their future. Kids who graduate college nowadays, they can't get a house, get a mortgage. They're delaying getting married and having kids. And, you double your income by getting that bachelor degree over someone who does not have that degree. And think of it this way. We need, as believers, we want our kids in leadership. We want them to be the doctors, the lawyers, the teachers, the engineers, or whatever they go into. And so those take college degrees. And if the believers stop sending their kids to college, then who's left? Right. Who's left that we'll have in our society? And so, and again, you can just prepare them as if they are, and they may change their mind later on down the road, and then they don't have to stress over it and wonder, what do I do now? Because I'm scrambling at the last minute and struggling. And I hear this all the time. People will come to me, probably the average at the end of junior year, and not that they can't still do well, because they can, but it puts more pressure on them. Mm-hmm. But they'll come and say, you know what? I wish we would have started earlier. That's the battle cry of every mom that comes by booth that has a junior or even into a senior year and said, we have done nothing and we are stressed. Yeah. Because as a homeschooler, you our kids get to get the best curriculum. They get the best math, the best science, the best reading,
Yep.
because we have such a great assortment. And those are all good things and they're necessary, but none of them are going to get you a full ride to college.
No.
And that's why it's important to add that test prep in there, just so that your students don't have to struggle later on. Or, their decision should be the institution and not the finances.
Exactly. Yep. And we always just say, Michelle is, prepare them for the Ivy League, and then they can shoot for the stars. They can just, they'll do whatever they want to do. But the other thing too is that, also God has a plan for your child's life. Whatever that looks like, your goal, your job as their parent and as their homeschool educator is to prepare them. And so this is a very wise thing. I wish that when I was homeschooling my kids, this would have been more of a thing that we would have had access to. But you do now. So there you go. Now you can take advantage. Well, I just want to thank you so much, Jean, for being with us today and talking with us. I hope we see you in Minnesota next year. That would be lovely.
Yeah,
it would be so great. Yeah. And so also anybody who has any questions, all of Jean's information is going to be in the description of this podcast. Links, everything that you need to get a hold of her. Ask her questions, her team. They're professionals. They've been doing this for years and they will help you. That's what they're here to do. That's their goal in life, is to help your child get as much money as they can off of going to college and to do well and to really, really succeed. So thank you guys so much for joining us today. If you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share information about this podcast, links to this podcast. If this is something that was helpful to you, share it with your friends so that they can be helpful to them as well. We appreciate your support here at Michelle. Don't forget to join us every Monday and Thursday for new episodes of Homeschool Minnesota podcast, a podcast outreach of Michelle. Thank you so much. Bye, Jean.
Bye, Dayle. Thank you.